Hello and welcome everybody to this next edition of the Being You Book Club.
Yay!
Dr. Dain Heer.
Cue party music.
Oh, now you've got your nice microphone.
Very, yeah. Ooh. 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 Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Stop it with a microphone. Okay.
Nice. And we have had lots of people in comments already asking for their language links, and we're putting them in the chat, and this time people can see them.
Cool. The world has changed.
Oh, no. Well, we got smarter.
Oh, I see.
You're the one posting the links.
I'm so smart. I am seriously multitasking. It's one of the things that Oneness imbues you with. A dynamic multitasking ability, my darling.
So good.
Right?
Yeah. So today's conversation, we've had a few of these beautiful conversations, and they're based around different chapters of the book. And this one, you know, we shared the title as Oneness, the inclusion of everything and everyone with no judgment. And it's based on the chapter in the book's actually called The Kingdom of We. And
one of my faves.
It's one of my favorites too. And as I do, I like to reread the chapters before we do these book clubs. And I had messaged you because I've read this book a lot of times. And every single time I reread a chapter or read it again, it's a completely different book. It goes in like it was one of the first books I ever read with Access Consciousness ever. And it changed my world. And every time I pick it back up, it really changes. How'd you do that?
I know. I wonder the same thing sometimes. It's interesting because one of the other things is the book seems to be gaining even more traction with people now than it had before. And my sense is there's no real logical explanation. It defies logic, but I've seen that with classes also. And this world of consciousness is ever expanding and ever changing. It's not a linear function, and it's also never complete. It's like anything that you do that truly has consciousness will continue to change and expand and sort of meet people where they are. And so this book is definitely no exception. And what's interesting is having written the book and having the same experience, I'm like, that's different than what I wrote. I'm like, this is just, wow, cool. I'll just be grateful for it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've been looking at, one of the biggest limitations we have is when we, like you just mentioned, when we think we've arrived or, oh, I've got that concept. I don't need to look anymore. And that is one of the biggest stopping points. But I would say on this topic, oneness, I don't know if many people are like, I got this.
Yeah, good point. And I would say you're probably correct on that, darling. And if they do think that, they're probably not correct in their assumption. And that's one of the beauties of it is there's always more. There's always more to be embraced. You know, it's like one of the things I do is I go on a run here often. And, you know, I run and there's this area where I stretch by these trees, and it's like the trees are always there, but they're always like the same, but different. You know, it's like they've got a similar thing, but they're also somehow changing, which is interesting because before really looking at it, I was like, oh, there's a tree, you know. Now I'm like, oh, hi. And it's like this thing where you can tell there's a consciousness there, there's a being there. And the more we open up to oneness, the gift of it is the beauty of our entire life experience becomes greater. And you start to realize that you're not only not alone, but the things that show you that, the things that vibrate most like you aren't necessarily the people that you want to vibrate like you, but there are things like trees and dolphins and insects and flowers and, and it can sound kind of cheesy, but imagine walking through the world where there's this sense of this symphony singing with you as you go. And I sound like I'm probably to some people, I do sound really cheesy but it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to have that experience as our living. And that's really what the chapter is about, the book is about, and the acknowledgement that actually exists and is available to us.
Yeah, well, one of the things you mentioned in the chapter is that one of the biggest lies that we buy is that we're alone. And so from that place, we think, well, if I'm alone, I have to choose just for me, because if I'm not choosing for me, then I must be choosing against me. So could you talk about that lie that we buy and how to change that? And what is that? What is that?
Yeah. So fundamentally, it's a lie that we've all been taught and we buy. And we have to realize we've learned so many things about the nature of reality from people who didn't really get what was going on, who were in a lot of reaction in a lot of their lives, who were trying to do the best they could while barely keeping their head above water a lot of times. And when it was more intense, we paid more attention because it's more intense, rather than when it's that intense, there's got to be some lie there. There's got to be some misidentification and misapplication about the nature of the world. And so this idea that if I'm really choosing for me, it's going to be all about me and nobody else matters it's just a lie. And, like if you think about if you've ever had an argument with somebody you're close to or with a friend, and when you feel that distance between you, it hurts. It feels like you're losing a part of you. Well, in a sense you are, because in order to manufacture distance as an infinite being, infinite means you're part of everything. And so in order to manufacture the lie that you're not, and then buy it and then live from it, that takes not only a lot of energy, it goes directly antithetic and directly against what we are as beings. And so a lot of us have been told that, you need to think more about yourself. You think too much about other people. You care too much about other people. You don't care about yourself enough. And there may be, the other part of that is that we misidentify and misapply what caring is. We think if we care for others and exclude ourselves, then that's somehow a grander or more noble form of caring. But that's not true caring. If you're not included, it's not true caring. And so in an effort to antidote that, because we do care for other people, and oftentimes we do try to care for other people more than ourselves, as an antidote to that, which is not the way we have to be, we then try to withdraw into it's all about me. But there's this thing called the kingdom of we, which when you're truly being you, everyone and everything is included with no judgment. And what we do is we withdraw into the kingdom of me, thinking that will protect us or protect our heart or whatever it is that we have as our justification. But what it really does is require us to be smaller than we are and have less space than we're capable of.
Sorry, I thought you were going to, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're going to keep going on that one.
Like, I may be learning to shut up. I'm not sure. It's only taken me 52 years.
My interviewing style, more succinct answers. Well, can you talk a little bit about that? You mentioned that basically polarity of I'm either going to totally have to make it all about me or only care for everybody else as like a remedy to what we see here and all of the drama and the distance and what we know something else is possible. So you mentioned this idea that we're infinite beings, which I think is one of those concepts. It's impossible to grasp with our mind, right?
Exactly.
How wonderful is that?
Yeah.
And you started talking about on your run and being around these trees. You recently gifted, depending on when you guys are watching this video, You right now have a free audio that's called Waking Up Miraculously.
Yes.
So someone watching will put the link in the chat. So that right now it's free, and it's this beautiful 20 or so minutes of waking up and being this energy of oneness. And do you want to talk about one of the tools in there that called a 10, one of these numbers that we have, that I know that since we've been playing with that, the trees are talking to me differently too. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. So we found that there are certain, I guess, energies or things that we could access using these numbers and to create change. And yes, please go to that link. It's my gift to you. We don't have it in all languages yet, but we're working on it. Please be patient. But for now, listen to the English and see what it contributes. And you're really going to be blown away when you don't speak English. You listen to it and it changes things. And if that's the case, please let us know. But so it's amazing to me. It's beautiful that we have these energetic abilities that nobody ever told us about. But as little kids, I mean, when you were a little kid, didn't you know you should be able to do magic? You know, like you should be able to pretty much ask for anything and be like, boom, and have it show up, right? And we try this and then it doesn't seem to show up. And we're like, but what's going on? You know? And so to a certain extent, this is a way that we can create a different space for us and actually for everything in the world, really. And it's based on something called the photon wavelength. And science will tell us that photons can either be in a wave form or a particulate. And think of a particulate as chopping up the wave into the tiniest parts. And the way this world works, the sort of staccato energy, is that particulate form of things that doesn't have a sense of connection to everything around it. It's its own particle, darn it. That's the kingdom of me embodied, really. And what you can do is transform the photon particulate into photon wavelength again, which is actually a sense of oneness, which is where you can be connected to everyone and everything, not have a need of judging it or you, and in fact, not have a need, period. And so let's do it. Since it was brought up, let's do it. Okay, so everybody watching, even if you're watching after the fact, this is one of my favorites, by the way. It's because it truly does create that place where you start to perceive every element communicating differently, whether it's trees or people or your bed or your clothes or your body. It's where all of this communication that's been going on forever, we can finally tune into its frequency by going beyond the kingdom of me that we have imposed upon ourselves that's not truly us. So pull that photon wavelength energy into your body and just ask for it. You know, you don't have to work at it. You just ask for it. And you might notice a shift. Some people notice a big shift, but I was never one of those people that noticed like huge shifts energetically. It's very funny what I do for a living now. The universe has a very interesting sense of humor. Okay, and now what we're going to do is some 10. So on 10, you're just going to explode it, like bring it into the world, into your body, into your life, into your reality, into your world, and into our world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And now get as big as the planet or bigger and just fill that space with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10.
Woo!
Whew. And y'all just notice what you notice, whatever that is. And don't even try to create a snapshot of it, because that's going back to that particulate. Just acknowledge it and go, wow, in this moment, wow. And that's actually how we can function in the world. Rather than trying to hold on to and take our little marbles everywhere and have a snapshot of it that we can identify and define, We can just be like, wow, in that moment, wow. And I wonder what it would take to have our entire life be moments of wow strung together as if by magic.
Well, that, and can you talk about that in the chapter of the book, the Kingdom of We? You talk about what is different in the world when we can actually choose from that space of the infinite beings that we are, and not be limited by the limiting points of view and judgments and the things that are around all of us. Do you want to speak a little bit about that, like how that actually works and shows up? Because we all know that energy and what's around, and it's everywhere. And what you just presented with this different, the 10 and being something different, how does that start to make your reality and your life show up different with what you're choosing?
Well, so it starts to create that sense of flow. And, you know, there are people that talk about the flow state, and you want to be in the flow state. And I think that's cool. And I would like our entire lives to be that flow state. But it's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than something that we can put into words. But somewhere our being, like the very being that we are, knows what this is. And we long to, I would say, I guess, be given permission to access it again. Mm-hmm. And so, guys, consider this your permission. Guys and ladies, consider this your permission, okay? Because it's not about being given permission. It's about making that choice because we know it is part of the world I would like to live in. And it was part of the reality I personally would like to have. And so what occurs as you start choosing more of this, it's really funny because I want to go read this chapter of the book again, you know, because I didn't have a chance to read it again before this particular session of the book club. But I'm like, wow, I want to read it again. I want to find out what I said, you know, because for me, it's like, I won't follow that train of thought. Let me get back to the other train of thought. There are many trains leaving the station at the same time in my world, pretty much all the time. But what starts to become the result of this is, number one, you stop looking for a result. And number two, you start to realize that we are part of the flow of the entire universe. We're not separate from it. And we often, and we've also, the other gift that we get is we stop functioning so much from the logic of our mind, and we start to function from the beyond logic awareness of our being. Mm. And we start to realize that on this planet, if something happens to any of us, it happens to all of us. And there are a lot of people that don't want to know that. A lot of people who would watch this and, you know, become keyboard warriors about, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're stupid. You're crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I'm happy, you know? And I think what it really does imbue us with is this sense of gratitude and this sense of joy at being alive and being what we are and being who we are. And this sense of gratitude for everyone and everything in our life that is contributing in whatever way it is, and this is where the line gets crossed into a different possibility, even grateful for those things that may be fighting against you or resisting you. And this is where the true potency of our being comes in. When we don't have to be drawn into the fight, when we don't have to try to prove that we're right, when we don't have to try to make anybody else wrong, and when we have a sense that we are truly strong in our communion with everyone and everything, our oneness with everyone and everything, we don't have to give up any part of ourselves to not fight against another. And we realize that fight that we've been doing is a way of preserving ourselves, which is what we spoke about at the very beginning, the fight against to preserve ourselves, or the caving in our little castle and defending against. is a choice for us to say, I'm small, not the acknowledgement of I am the universe. And if you are the universe, there's nothing to fear. If you are the universe, there's nothing to stress out about. If you are the universe, it is only a choice of what you would like to be and create as your future.
Well, when you so beautifully talk about not that energy of not having to fight, and when something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. When we get pulled into that, are we actually also fighting ourselves, thinking we're fighting everybody else or the limitations or whatever we've decided?
Yes, exactly that. And we literally are fighting against ourselves in that moment. And also, I'm so glad you brought this up, because we think we've got to fight against limitations as though that is going to end the limitation. But what if it doesn't? What if fighting against limitation doesn't end the limitation? What if it perpetrates the limitation? And the thing is, don't fight against anything. If you're going to fight for possibilities. But that's a totally different thing and not a fight as we know it. Mm-hmm. That's an exploration of what else is possible and what other choices do we have. Can I have you carry this on for a moment? I'm having somebody ring my doorbell about 27 times.
Yes.
I know it's weird.
And when you get up, do you have a Being You book with you? Or I'll start reading. We'll go answer your door. Okay, good. Have it ready.
I'll be right back.
Small interlude. While we're waiting for Dain, I saw someone in the chat wrote earlier that they are excited to see him next weekend. Dain will be in Madrid, Spain for a Being You Changing the World class next weekend. It's also online, so you can join from wherever you are in the world. It is May 12th to 14th. And if you've never been to one of Dain's Being You Changing the World classes, they were created years ago when the book came out. And it's one of the only classes, well, it is the only class except when Dain facilitates bars, that has no prerequisite. And so it's an incredible 3-day adventure with him. There's no prerequisites. It is a very unique class in that way. And I'm just telling you about your class in Spain and online.
Oh, yay.
It was a commercial break.
The class in Spain facilitated by the Dain, where the rain is not only on the plane. There better not be rain on Dain's plane, now that I think about it. Okay.
Okay. Now I totally forget where we were to.
Oneness, fighting against.
Yes.
Fighting for. That's one of the things. It's like so many of us want to, quote unquote, fight the good fight. And it's a very romantic notion. And one of the things that we get trapped in is the romance of things, what is honorable. And in actuality, what we miss in that is that photon wavelength of peace and ease. And also, so that becomes one of the other big traps is if things are too easy, we go to, even though we say, I want ease with this, when things are too easy, we go, what's wrong? Rather than, wow, what's right about this I'm not getting. And what if there were no need to fight against anyone or anything ever again? Because if you look at it, if you have a 6-year-old who's throwing a tantrum, do you get down on their level and yell at them and try to fight against their tantrum? Or do you go, oh, 6-year-old having a tantrum? What if that's what we saw with all of these people that we think we need to fight against, or that we think it's bringing something greater to the world to fight against them? What if it's us going down to that level that perpetuates it? What if instead you stay up here in the oneness you are? And now I also have to acknowledge that it requires some tools for that to happen. And one of the greatest tools is interesting point of view. I have this point of view, requires the acknowledgement of the space that's possible. And then also when you really want to get there, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'm going to be oneness. Yay. No, man, you got to like really get it and then use some tools like pock and pot all this crap, pock and pot everything that makes me think this. And now interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view.
Can you walk us through that? Like have everybody get something or someone that
sure
be in fight with, and then like walk us through some of the tools that you use and that change it so beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, if you get something that you've had a little bit of upset with that is still in your world, or someone, isn't it funny? I asked that and pretty much every person around the world is like, oh, okay, that, the only issue is which of my upsets do I choose? What, anyway, but that's not a kindness to us to carry that much upset with us. So here's one tool to change it. So get the sense of that and just lower your walls and barriers and realize you're not going to be hurt. You're not going to be killed. Okay. And then just to that energy, go interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Usually it changes, starts changing. And then again, to whatever's there. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. And then again, interesting point of view. I have this point of view. And one more time, interesting point of view. I have this point of view. And usually with that many times, it just kind of melts somehow. Because what you're doing in that is you're taking your energy out of fighting against. And our energy is the only thing that has enough power to maintain a fight against. When we pull our energy out of that, it changes the whole dynamic because we are the only ones with enough power to perpetually feed it.
And can I say that tool and many of the others in Access, but when getting that, it was like this huge relief because I looked around the world before that and saw all these things that I wanted to change or that I, weren't how I knew the world could be. And the only thing I had been given is to fight it, like the good fight, or join an organization or a community that was like fighting to change it.
Yeah, join us in our good fight.
Yeah, really, and it comes from such a place of really desiring and knowing there's something different. But until you look at, so can you talk about that tool invites allowance and how that is so different and how that actually changes things?
Yeah, absolutely. Allowance is where everything is just an interesting point of view. And so the other side is acceptance, which is where you go to the fight. And what is acceptance? Well, it's the positive and negative polarity. So if somebody says you're a jerk, for example, and you align and agree, you go, oh, I'm a jerk. Well, okay, now you're stuck with being a jerk. Well, now that you've aligned and agreed, how do you get out of being a jerk? Now you resist and react, which is the negative polarity. Now you fight against. You're like, I'm not a jerk. You're a jerk, But no, that is school child economics. Okay, this is like school child time, rather than okay, what other choices do I have available? So allowances. Somebody goes, you're a jerk, and you go, okay, thank you, because you're functioning from interesting point of view. And this idea of interesting point of view, I have this point of view, is a way of bringing that forth when you have been functioning from the positive or negative polarity, and it dissolves the polarity. And if you choose, see, a lot of people have this tool in the world and they will do interesting point of view to try to get out of a stuck place, which is cool. And what I invite people to is how much richer, how much more inclusive, how much less like broken glass would your life be if you chose to be interesting point of view? In other words, no matter what came at you, you were like a big happy marshmallow. And the thing is, what are we taught? We're taught that, oh, you'll get hurt, you'll get killed, you'll be, actually, no, that's one of the biggest lies that we've ever bought, that we will be the effect of things if we choose that. In fact, we will affect things if we choose that. We will be a space that is indomitable, that is undeniable, that brings space and possibilities to every situation we are involved in.
Talk about something that is exactly the opposite of what we are taught and told that is how we are supposed to change the world. Right? It's so opposite.
It is. This is the case of everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. Nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. And when you're having one of those weird cranky days, run that 10 or 12 times, because it'll take you out of where you're being crazy.
Well, and you recently, in one of the class of yours or a call sometime recently, you said allowance and this energy of interesting point of view is a gift we actually give ourselves.
That.
Can you say more about that? I thought that was so beautifully put, and also a different way of looking at it. Not like I'm going to be an allowance, so, you know, for other people, or which it does create that. And
yeah. And okay, so allowance is a gift we give ourselves. There, I said it. No. It is interesting because a lot of times we use allowance. It's a tool, which it can be, and it can be used that way, but it's almost like if you're choosing to choose more consciousness, there are times where you use it to try to do the right thing. Like, okay, I'll get over hating them. You know, I'm an interesting point of view. I have, you know, that's okay. At least you're doing something. You know, I applaud you doing something.
Yeah.
You may be following the letter of the law. You're not exactly following the spirit, you know, or the letter of the tool, but not the spirit. So recognizing that us choosing to be an allowance is not about the other person. It's not about being okay with the situation. It's a gift we give ourselves of presence with everything, and also a gift of ease and the willingness to have ease, even if other people want to draw us into the drama and the conflict.
Yeah. Okay, I would, there's a few places. I also have having a brain where like we could go in so many directions.
Right.
One thing with that, so the gift you give yourself, and you mentioned with that space and being a happy marshmallow, and from that space, we actually become the effect. Can you talk about that potency that it creates when we be that, like, and what that could look like in the choices that you're open up to you to be able to make from happy marshmallow allowance space?
Can somebody give me an English translator? And it's not you, okay? It's my brain is once again going into some very wonderfully diverse places right now. But so if you look at that for a moment, it's like, what if it were the happy marshmallows that ran the world? You know, like the really kind people. And what do those people get for the most part when they're growing up? Abused, gaslighted, bullied. Why? Because the bully knows, the abuser knows that this person has power. And they abuse them because they can sense this person has power, and it scares them. And they figure if they can get power over this person, then they will have power that they don't believe they have. So even the bullies and the gaslighters know that happy marshmallows have the power. So what are we missing? Those of us that don't bully. Oh, those of us that would actually like more freedom to be happy marshmallows, but we don't because of so many reasons, because of so many things that we've been taught. But imagine if we had happy marshmallows as world leaders.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. And happy smart marshmallows, by the way. Just because we're talking marshmallows doesn't mean they're not intelligent.
Yeah.
You might look and realize the people we have now are not exactly intelligent, most of them, okay? But that's a story for another time. But if they were, could you just imagine a world leader functioning from total allowance? Now, one that comes to mind is Nelson Mandela when he took power in South Africa. And I gotta say, I would love to say that I could be as an allowance of that man as that man was. Damn, I'd have to work on it. Okay. And yet though, I look at that and I realize that if the people that abused me and told lies about me came up and said, you know what? I am truly sorry. I did not know. I am so much more aware now. I did not realize what I was doing, or blah, 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 blah. And they had actually changed. I'd be like, okay, let's have a hug. Let's go. So I guess there is more hope for me than I thought.
Yeah.
But really this idea of us holding on to the fight against others and this fight as a way of creating more, or not being a happy marshmallow because somehow it's going to create less. See, what if it's, so there's all kinds of points of view that create these realities, right? We have all kinds of points of view about not being the happy marshmallow, about fighting against, about needing to protect ourselves, doing kingdom of me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those are all the elements of, I would say, all the worst elements of this reality, like the elements of this reality that work the least. And we're using the least effective tool for the job. So we think we need to go to force to have our back, but in actuality, when you go to force, that's not usually you having your back, at least not living from a place like that. So if we had happy marshmallows, people who are truly an allowance, they see from a different space than everybody else does. They look and see a different future. In fact, that is the space where you're actually willing to see the future.
Yeah.
And if you look at Nelson Mandela as an example, and by the way, none of these people are perfect. None of us are. It's not about being perfect. Okay. But if you look at it, he saw the future that would be created. He saw that he saw the contracted future that would be created if his government went, oh yeah, well, we're going to do the same thing to white people that they did to us. Mm-hmm. And he went, no, we must include them and we must forgive. And talk about courage, man. Talk about strength. Talk about power. But that's where someone can see the future and desires that over being right.
God, yeah.
And this is desiring to create a future, a greater future than being right, and being right about how you were hurt and wronged in the past and needed to make somebody else pay for it or suffer for it. Because once again, what happens to any of us on this planet happens to all of us. So if you are the cause of another's suffering, there's a part of you that suffers too. And this with so many of the things I say, people will take them from a limited perspective and try to put it into a small box, which is not where it's designed to go. Mm-hmm. So in other words, having said that, like I experienced a lot of abuse in my life. And there was a point in my life where I needed to say, fuck you, energetically to these people, because before that I was like, yeah, I'm tiny, I'm little, I'm whatever, right? Energetically. That's appropriate. But that was a stepping stone toward happy marshmallow.
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to go through whatever steps we need to, take as many steps and step on as many stones as we need to get where we want to go. But we want to have the larger perspective of future impossibilities and allow ourselves to have that awareness, and the awareness that we have that awareness and head in that direction.
Well, that there's so much space in this conversation. That, you know, we were actually, I think, having a conversation before coming on here about some of this. And that part that you just said, like when we have these different, it's so having allowance for us when you are in that required step to get to here and to functioning as an infinite being. Like it's okay to have allowance for us in those moments when you needed to say an energetic fuck you to get to the different space. And that is such a, when I've been looking at that recently, such a different space. And boy, does it allow you to access the next space faster rather than sitting there making you wrong for where you're at or not choosing or wishing you could get somewhere and you're not yet.
So true. And that self-judgment, it's interesting because if there is a single greatest handicap that we impose on ourselves, it's that judgment of self.
Yeah.
And that's not getting us where we'd like to go. Mm-mm. It just isn't. And it won't. And exactly like you said, not judging you for it, being an allowance of you for it, allows you to get to the next space faster. And I want to say that everybody out there, you will find your way. You can relax now. Okay. You will find your way, and you are not wrong. You are not alone. And your way will probably be different than everybody else's, but it doesn't mean we can't contribute to you and receive the gift of your contribution to us. Mm-hmm. And one other thing, this journey of consciousness has no roadmap. It has no GPS. The GPS exists in the polarized reality of knowing who to fight and what to fight against, and who to be right and how to be right and wrong and all that. Okay. There's a GPS in that you could just step into and go on autopilot if you want to. But if you're watching this, that's probably not enough. So realize this is uncharted territory. You are an explorer of this thing called consciousness. And consciousness is where everything exists and nothing is judged. And please recognize that you're going to screw it up. I screw it up all the time. Still, I just have far less judgment of me for screwing it up. And every screw up leads to more awareness and leads to bigger leaps on the path. So please realize there is no GPS. It is, and you are not wrong for anything you've chosen. And whatever you chose up until this moment is fucking irrelevant. What would you like to choose from this moment forward?
Your psychic abilities, can I just say? Every time I write down a few questions just so that, like, follow the energy, I write down a few. You basically just read me one of my questions, which is really fun. Like, you think choice is coming to conclusion or a decided GPS point or presumptive reality? But how, so just like you mentioned, so now we're in uncharted territory. This hasn't existed before.
Yeah.
Really choosing without that roadmap. I don't know if you want to talk about that presumptive reality that creates a roadmap, but how, when we're like, okay, this is what I desire, this energy, there's a lot of gratitude in the chat, like tears, that like, this is what I desire now. How do I move forward with choosing? And you mentioned something in the book, but I've heard you talk very recently about that differently, is the energy or like tone of a choice. Can you talk about how you can tell, am I choosing from this space of infinite being and what's this uncharted territory, or am I doing conclusion or presumptive reality? Like, because I think it's hard to tell. as like when you're first looking at this, because we've so long been in functioning this other way.
So true. And so when you talk on that idea of what tone does the choice have, it's like, is it like, oh, that sounds a little cheesy and off tune, by the way, or is it more like, and that can be a dynamic clue. Like, does it, in the sense of the choosing of it, does it create more happy marshmallow possibilities? Does it do this? And there is no wrong choice. See, we'll make a choice based on the best awareness we can gather, including all of our conclusions, including all the presumptive realities, our presumptive idea of reality and everybody else's, including like all of that together gets lumped into what we make a choice with. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's stop trying to make the perfect choice and the conscious choice. Let's give ourselves a break. Let's just fucking choose. And if it turns out poorly, okay. Is this the first time in your life you've made poor choices? I mean, I tell people, I'm like, I've screwed up more stuff than most people. I've made more screwed up choices than most people have made choices, because I love to choose, And so, and I mean, really, I'm an experiential conscious explorer, not an experimental conscious explorer. Like, I'm going to have the experience. And if I screw up, then I screwed up. Then, I'll do what I can to make up for the damage done and be greater tomorrow and move on, And
can you elaborate? That is so great, because I think many of us are experiential explorers, but our brains tell us to stop and figure it out rather than just jump in.
Totally. Well, our brains, but also everybody else's judgments.
Oh, totally.
And everybody else's, oh, you can't do that. Oh, the wonderful thing about this reality is we have a bunch of happy marshmallows basically covered in everybody else's poop. Like, go for that visual. You're like, it's not the s'more I wanted. And so it's so many other people. So what do you do? Well, we have a lot of tools and access to change it, as a lot of people should know by now. But as far as this goes, it's like we've been taught by other people who were terrified by us choosing that it's okay, that we can't choose unless we figure everything out, and that just choice could hurt you or kill you. And what they were really saying is, I'm terrified of the fact that you're choosing. What they said out loud energetically, that's what was going on. They were terrified about you choosing. And what came out of their mouths was, you could die if you choose that, or, you could get hurt. To which our adventuresome spirit went, what? I never thought of that. Oh my goodness. And it's such a bolt of lightning out of left field that we cave in, just like we were struck by lightning. And now we're still there trying to figure it out, because that's not our reality. Our reality is like, leap. Our reality is like, jump out of the plane. I'm sure the parachute will work. And if not, I'm going to have a glorious flight until I say hello to the earth, And so there's that within so many of us that would like so much more to be the experiential adventure of consciousness rather than the experimental, the one that figures it all out and, measures everything down to the nth degree, down to the tiniest grain of sand and the grain of possibility. And what about this grain? And then that's crazy making for beings like us. And so recognize, we've all bought that. So everything you've done to buy, that you need to be experimental and figure and do double-blind studies on every possible outcome before you make a choice. And whoever's reality you're functioning from, mom, dad, a combination of mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, genetic line, friends, frenemies, teachers. Oh, and everywhere you chose something and then were made wrong for it, and you never want to feel that way again. So you decided you would think yourself into existence, which thinks you out of existence. Well, you destroy and uncreate it all, please. and all the presumptive realities and needs of reactive realities and all the other stuff connected with that, right and wrong, good and bad, bod and pock, all nine shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds.
Woo.
Dear Lordy, mercy, hallelujah.
Pardon my yawn. There's just a little bit of energy on that.
That is a little bit of energy on that. That's part of the beauty of it, though, is exactly that. It's like, we'll say this, and here's the thing, is it applies to so many of us, but so many people have not heard the conversation or haven't been present for, hey, we've got different choices available. That's one of the things I love about these book clubs is they present these conversations. They're like, guys, gals, we have different choices available. Yeah. Let's choose those if they'd be more fun for us.
And that's what I love, you know, the chapter Kingdom and We is about oneness. And basically the chapter is about choice. Yep. And actually choosing from this totally different space or tone, like the la, you know, not the that we're used to.
Yeah.
I like you off key.
I don't know if, oh, that was better. I was wondering, you know, and especially let's blame it on Zoom's voice canceling feature, you know. Okay. I think we were both totally on tune, by the way. And I think Zoom just processed it wrong because it just couldn't handle all the beauty.
Yeah, it makes the sound worse, but your skin better.
Totally. Oh, yes. Good. And the little adjustment knob, adjust appearance, maximum. Thank you.
And then you look a little freaky, but you know.
Well, who cares how you sound as long as you look pretty? I used to have a friend who had a t-shirt, and it was funny because it was the t-shirt even looked like crappy. And it said, it doesn't matter who you are, it's how you look that matters. With a cheap, crappy t-shirt. I was just like, this is so good.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
I kind of wonder, have you read a little bit from the book? Although we didn't plan this, I didn't tell translators, so.
No.
But it could
That's
be
okay.
It could be really short, and you can read slowly. While you're grabbing your book and turning to, I'm going to say page 275. Or let's do 275. And while you're getting your book, if you guys don't have a copy of this book, it just got released in another language, Dutch. I don't know how many languages that is now. A lot. I don't know, 14, 15, a lot of languages.
Yes.
And at that site, you can find the book. It's translated, and you can also find your Being You classes, the next one, which is coming up in Madrid, Spain, and online, and offered in a lot of languages.
Yay!
Yay! Okay. At the top of page 275, we started this live, if you guys joined late, talking about the lie of aloneness instead of this energy of oneness that we're talking about. Would you like to read that little bit?
I would. I'm going to cry on my own live.
Okay.
Oh, well, not the first time. The moment you try to create the lie of aloneness, you separate yourself from everything that would allow you to make a choice that would be rewarding for you and everyone. In other words, in order to try to buy that lie that you have to be alone in order to choose for you, you cut yourself off from all the awarenesses you could have that would allow you to make a choice that would go in the direction you want. You cut yourself off from the caring that you have for you and for other people. For you, that caring has to be a factor in all of your choices. When you try to choose only for you, you also cut yourself off from the potency you have by virtue of your connection to other people and their awareness and their caring and contribution. You cut yourself off from everything that makes you the brilliance of you in order to go into this artificial lack of space you create that you think is the only space from which you can choose. Shall I keep going?
Beautiful. If you want to read, you could read the last little bit.
Okay, I would do that.
I was thinking just the top, but now that you're there, I'm like, oh,
I know.
just the last little bit.
I'm inviting you to choice that doesn't start from the perspective of other people's limitations or your limitations. It's functioning from choice that actually does include everyone and everything, but isn't limited by it and isn't limited by other people's judgments. It's being embraced by the oneness that is the universe, the gifting that the sun and the planets and all the animals, the plants and the trees are to you, that the universe is to you, and that you are to it. And would you be willing to choose by including the entirety of the consciousness of the world that desires to gift to you and your choices? And will you now destroy and uncreate everything that doesn't allow it? Times a gazillion, right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys, povads, and beyonds. There, you know, one page of this book.
I know.
Goodness, golly.
And it ties it all in such a nice little bow.
Right? Totally.
Of our whole conversation.
Who wrote this thing? It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. And can I also mention with that and this energy and the magic of this book, you wrote this 12 years ago now?
12 years ago, yeah.
12 years ago. And 3 years ago, you started a Being You Day to really celebrate this energy that we've been talking about, like the oneness.
Yay.
Yay. And it's coming up again on May 22nd. So in just a few weeks. And it's a free, I think this year we have 12 hours of live stream in all sorts of languages. I'm going to try to put if you go to beingyouday.com, you're kicking off the day. But I'd love to invite everybody to that too, and to invite anybody you know, because it's free and it'll be live streaming here on YouTube and on that website. But it is such an invitation. Like, could you like just talk about your target with that and what you'd like to see that gift to the world and the oneness that we are all?
Yeah. For me, my target is for people to explore the gift that their uniqueness and their difference is, and also come together to celebrate all of our uniqueness and our difference, and also give you some like getting there. Like somewhere we all know that our difference should be a gift, and yet somewhere we've all done many things that, you know, indicate that that is not the case. And so this is about also having an invitation and ways of exploring that, but also being inspired by beautiful people who have just chosen to be them, whatever they are, and share with you that it's okay. And so we'll laugh, we'll have a lot of fun, we'll probably drool, but we'll actually leave the day with a sense of gratitude and happy marshmallow for you about being you, and inspired to know that you can actually choose it in more of your life.
So here's to more drooling, happy marshmallows.
Yeah.
Changing the world. You might have to.
That's right.
Exactly. Oh, thank you so much, Dain. And to everybody who's been watching, and we'll see it in the future, and the translators.
Yes. And thank you, Miss Emily, and also all of you and the translators who show up to contribute this to all these beautiful people around the world. Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
See you somewhere soon. Bye-bye.